The observation deck above Sparring Ring 8 was packed 3 rows deep, cadets and instructors alike pressed against the reinforced glass. Word had spread through the academy in less than an hour. The new transfer student, the human girl from that quarantined dirtball colony, had been slotted into Class 8, the ring reserved for combatants who could shatter Duracrete with a stray elbow. Lyra stood in the center of the ring, and she did not look afraid. She was small by the standards of most species enrolled at the Cassiterite Combat Institute. Her limbs were unremarkable, her frame unarmored by chitin or reinforced by subdermal plating. To the Voth instructors watching from the control booth, she looked like a mistake in the scheduling system, an error that had, for reasons no one had bothered to explain, been left uncorrected. "She should be in Class 2, muttered Instructor Draith, his 4 eyes narrowing as he reviewed her file. Her biometrics don't even register above baseline for most categories. Command flagged her personally, said the aide beside him. Said to let her fight as scheduled. Said humans don't test well on paper. Draith made a sound low in his throat, something between a growl and a laugh. Then paper is wrong. Down in the ring, Lyra reached up and gathered her long dark hair, twisting it into a tight knot at the back of her head. She tied it off with a simple elastic band, unhurried, the way someone might prepare for a light morning jog rather than a sanctioned bout against a genetically engineered war species. Her opponent was already pacing the far side of the ring. Kieran had transferred in 8 months ago, and in that time, he'd become something of a legend among the human contingent, not for winning, exactly, but for surviving fights that should have ended him. He wasn't scheduled to fight today. He was here because he'd heard the same rumor everyone else had, and he wanted to see it with his own eyes. He found a spot near the front of the observation deck, arms crossed, jaw tight. "That's her?" asked the cadet next to him, a lanky thrall with mottled green skin. "The one from the Deathworld." "That's her," Kieran said. "She looks like she weighs 60 kilos soaking wet." 62, Kieran said. "I checked." The thrall gave him a sideways look. "You're not worried?" Kieran didn't answer right away. He was watching Lyra roll her shoulders, watching the way she planted her feet, the way her eyes tracked her opponent with the flat, patient attention of someone who had done this 1,000 times before in circumstances far worse than a sanctioned academy match. He'd seen that look before. He'd worn it himself, once, a long time ago, back when Earth's gravity and Earth's weather and Earth's every waking hour had been trying to kill him before he'd turned 14. "No," he said finally. "I'm worried about him." Her opponent was a Karsu heavy fighter named Vren, nearly 3 meters of corded muscle and natural armor plating, bred on a world with triple Earth's gravity specifically to produce soldiers who could shrug off small arms fire. He'd won 11 consecutive matches in Class 8. He was, by every metric the Institute measured, one of the most dangerous cadets on campus. He looked at Lyra the way a demolition crew looks at an anthill. The buzzer sounded. Vren didn't wait. He closed the distance in a single explosive stride, a clawed hand sweeping toward her center mass with enough force to cave in reinforced plating. It was the kind of opening move that ended most Class 8 matches in the first 3 seconds. Lyra wasn't there. She'd already dropped low and pivoted, letting the strike pass a hand's width over her shoulder, and in the same motion, she drove her palm up into the underside of his extended arm. Not to overpower him. Nobody could overpower him, but to redirect the momentum he'd already committed to the air. Vren's own strike, robbed of its target, dragged him half a step off balance. Half a step was all she needed. She was already moving, already inside his guard, and her elbow found the narrow gap beneath his ribs where the natural plating gave way to softer tissue. A gap Draith would later insist, reviewing the footage, that no combat AI in the Institute's database had ever flagged as exploitable. Vren made a sound like a bellows losing air and staggered back. On the observation deck, the crowd had gone very quiet. "She hit him," the thrall cadet said, disbelieving. "She actually, that's a real hit. That wasn't a graze, I saw the impact ripple." "Watch her feet," Kieran said quietly. "Not her hands. Her feet." Down in the ring, Vren had recovered his footing and switched tactics, abandoning the wild opening strikes for something more controlled, more calculated, a grappling approach designed to use his overwhelming mass advantage. He lunged low, arms wide, trying to close the distance and simply crush her. Lyra sidestepped, but not far, just enough. As his arms swept past her, she caught his wrist, planted her heel against the mat, and used his own forward momentum to redirect him past her and into the ring's padded barrier. It wasn't strength. Everyone in the room understood, watching it happen, that it could not have been strength. It was timing, precise and merciless, the product of reflexes calibrated somewhere that pain and consequence were not abstract concepts taught in a classroom. Vren hit the barrier hard enough to make the whole ring frame shudder. He turned, snarling now, some of the composure gone from his stance, and the crowd on the observation deck leaned forward as one. "He's getting sloppy," Drath murmured, mostly to himself, forgetting for a moment that he'd dismissed the fight before it started. "He's getting scared," the aide corrected. Vren came again, faster this time, no longer trying to finesse the engagement, just trying to end it through sheer overwhelming force. 300 kilos of muscle and momentum aimed directly at a girl who weighed a fifth of that. It should have worked. On paper, against any reasonable opponent, it would have worked. Lyra didn't dodge this time. She stepped into it. She dropped her center of gravity at the last possible instant, caught his charging weight against her shoulder and hip in a throw that used his own mass as the engine of his fall, and put him on his back on the mat with a crash that rattled the observation glass. Before he could recover, she'd already dropped a knee across his forearm, pinning the limb, her other hand pressed flat and precise against the base of his throat, not choking, just present, just close enough that everyone in the room understood exactly how close it was to being something else entirely. The buzzer sounded. Match over. Lyra released him immediately and stepped back, and for a moment the ring was silent except for Vren's ragged breathing. Then the observation deck erupted. Kieran didn't cheer with the others. He watched Lyra reach up, unhurried, and pull the elastic band from her hair, letting it fall loose around her shoulders again, the fight already fading from her posture like water off stone. She offered Vren a hand up. After a long moment, staring at her like he was recalculating everything he thought he knew about the universe, he took it. "They put her in Class 8 to make a point," Kieran said finally, to no one in particular. "They wanted to prove humans didn't belong at the top tier." The Thrall cadet was still staring down at the ring, at Vren nursing his arm, at the small human girl walking calmly back toward the exit as if she'd just finished stretching. "I don't think that's the point they proved." "No," Kieran agreed, allowing himself the smallest smile. "It really isn't." In the control booth, Drath was already pulling up her file again, rereading the medical baseline, the biometric scan, the notation from command that he'd dismissed an hour ago without a second thought. Humans don't test well on paper. He closed the file and requested a full evaluation instead. Below, Lyra tied her hair back up before she'd even left the ring, already thinking about the next match on the schedule, because on the world she came from, you never really stopped.